You may have heard the name Chuck Tingle, or you might have seen his book covers and said, oh my God, what is that? Who is Chuck Tingle? What's a tingler? Today we're doing a deep dive, pondering those questions and more. Oh, you didn't ask? Well, that's too bad. Hi, my name is Rachel, and today we're doing a deep dive on Chuck Tingle, the man, the myth, the legend. Artistic genius, man with what seems to be a deep love for Photoshop, and maybe something more, maybe even Chris Pine. We'll get there. I have reviewed Tinglers before. You may have seen me talk about this one with the snowman and the carrot appendage, but Chuck Tingle has so much more than just that snowman book. So very much more. But what he also has, or at least what he's inspired, is tons and tons of internet speculation. Who or what is Chuck Tingle? Why the mask? Why the sunglasses? Why is he anonymous at all? Why is a bag chosen as the mask in particular? What possessed him to write about boinking a jet plane? While answers are few, Chuck does have one thing that he reiterates over and over and over, which is a message: love is real. And his books tell us that he doesn't just mean the kind. He's talking about platonic love. He's talking about ace folks. And some are just about pondering on self-love, taking care of yourself. Really living in the moment is actually the message of that snowman book. And you know who really specializes in self-love is today's sponsor, which is Bellesa. Bellesa has a new Whisper collection, which are their silent toys. And the proof that they're silent is that this one is currently running and you can't hear it. You hear anything? You see the red lights on? Me neither. It's a whisper. Shh, love is real. Bellesa's Whisper Tech makes sure that you never need to choose between power and discretion. So chili pepper time without waking up your entire household. This is their Whisper Rabbit, which has two buttons, one for this little guy and one for this little guy. And it's running and you can't hear anything. Very demure, very mindful. You just hit the button to turn it up and you still don't hear anything. Silence, but deadly. They have the Whisper Bullet, the Whisper Wand, and the Whisper Rabbit, all of which will stay silent, but can you? Whisper Bullet in particular was made with aesthetics in mind. It's super cute. It looks like a tube of lipstick. How is anybody going to know? Bellesa is a bi-women company whose mission is to have everybody embrace, empower, and learn about their spicier side. All of these are super good for beginners. Whisper Bullet and Whisper Vibe only have one button. You just press it to increase the speed and you still can't hear it, even on its highest speed. Easy peasy. Whisper Bullet in particular is great for if you're traveling. You can use them by yourself, self-love is real, or with a partner. They're waterproof, they're easy to clean, they just charge in this charging point right here on the bottom. Could not be simpler or better for beginners. And like, look how cute the color is. Think pink. Oop, I feel like that might have a double meaning. Everyone who uses the link down below wins a free Whisper Vibe or a free viral rose suction toy with any Whisper purchase. So click the link below to grab your new vibe, love yourself, and thank you so much to Bellesa for sponsoring today's video. Okay, the enigma that is Dr. Chuck Tingle, proving that love is real, one pounded butt at a time. One of my mutuals, Gracie, Grappy Del Taco, who is lovely, by the way. She's even lovelier in person. I had lunch with her at BookNet Fest, and what an absolute gem. I could talk to her for hours. She is so funny and so kind. She makes great content about sentient object romance, and one of her best works to date is, I'm just going to show you a clip.
I was wrong yesterday when I thought the Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt series ended with Pounded in the Butt by My Book, 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 Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt. There's one more. Pounded in the Butt by My Book, 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 Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt is the actual true finale. And honestly, I think maybe the best in the series.
So highly recommend checking out Grappy's content on Chuck Tingle. So the thing about Chuck Tingle is that there's a lot of books that I review on this channel that are badly written and are specifically badly written schmerotica. Chuck Tingle's books are kind of funny looking on the outside, but they are not poorly written on the inside. That's what's so hilarious about this, is that you would think by this Photoshop cover that you know what you're getting into, but you actually don't. So let me tell you a little bit more about him. Chuck Tingle is not just an author. Chuck Tingle is one of the most delicious parts of contemporary internet culture. So he he is, on the one hand, I should say this up front, he's on the one hand known for these self-published and like just absolutely absurdly titled gay or queer erotica, depending on which one you read. So you may have heard of, the first one I ever heard of was Space Raptor Butt Invasion and I'm Gay for My Living Billionaire Jet Plane. Those were the two that I heard of first. On the other hand, he is also a 2-time Hugo Award finalist, Bram Stoker Award nominee, and a critically acclaimed author of queer novels. One of them I own, and as per usual, it is not in the same room as me, and I'm too lazy to go get it, but it's called Camp Damascus. My friend Natalie read it and loved it. It's a queer horror book about conversion therapy. Bury Your Gaze was just released, and then what is the new one? I just saw this in my Instagram feed like a couple days ago, weeks ago. Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. That's it. Wait a minute. Is this outfit giving Beetlejuice? It's showtime. Oh no. So Chuck Tingle does write these sort of, I don't even know how to describe this, ridiculous looking books, but also writes a more, I don't want to call it serious because that feels like derogatory towards his erotica, which I don't want to talk about in the derogatory. It's funny, but I wouldn't say they're bad books. Like obviously the covers are hysterical, but they're like meant to be laughed along with until you read them and you're like, oh, well that was, you made a point there. The difference between the two, his more serious books and his more meta satirical, hilariously covered erotica books, they're so different, like there's such a divergence that some people have wondered if maybe it's two different people or if it's a group of people, sort of like an Aaron Hunter Warriors situation. But whether or not it's one person or several, Dr. Chuck Tingle is a whole persona. He says that he is a Taekwondo grandmaster and a doctor of holistic massage who owns a PhD from DeVry University, who does not offer a degree in that. He says he is from Home of Truth, Utah, and in public appearances he maintains his anonymity by wearing this pink bag over his head and a pair of sunglasses every time. Sunglasses differ, but the bag remains, and the bag always says, "Love is real." He also regularly calls people buckaroos. So there's this whole carefully constructed identity that is part of a performance that is Chuck Tingle, and it becomes part of the art itself. Now, I have talked at length on this channel. No, I haven't. I have talked several times. I haven't talked about it at length yet, have I? I have talked several times on this channel about Sleep Token, who is a band of people who are masked. They are anonymous, although their identities were revealed and doxed by some asshole on the internet. We don't go looking for that information because they'd like to remain anonymous. And so it is with Chuck Tingle. So we're not actually going to reveal Chuck Tingle's identity today. We're going to talk about the different theories of who he is, which are very funny, but also we're going to talk about the persona and the art. So he is a purveyor of parody, but he's not just that, and he's not doing a gimmick. He has this like consistent vision that embodies his work. It's this entire artistic project that I think is unlike anything that we've ever seen from an author, at least in our lifetime, unless there was a guy back in the day who was wearing a bag that said "Love is real" on it. I'm just not familiar with such. I doubt that there's ever been somebody who has done it like this, where they've used so many different genres, erotica and satire and horror, as tools in their toolbox to talk about different things: bigotry, self-love, queerness. So I believe that his first of the Tinglers, the satirical books, came out in 2014. The Tinglers are the foundation of his literary universe. They are very short. Some of them are like 10 pages. I believe the carrot appendage one that I read was 10 pages or so. This is where he developed his unique voice. Obviously, these can get dismissed by people who aren't familiar with Chuck Tingle. I myself obviously looked at the billionaire jet plane one and said, oh, that's really something, and not in a positive way. But when you open them, they are often either works of satire or they are social commentary on things, which you can sometimes tell from the title. They are deeply inclusive. He has hundreds of these stories and you can get them on Amazon. They are pretty formulaic, but all of them have something so different about them that they are worth opening the next one. Typically the plot involves a guy as a protagonist. Some of them are women, but most of them that I've read are men. And this guy will encounter a fantastical non-human identity, or non-human entity rather. So the one that I keep referencing is a snowman. And what happens in this particular book is this guy and his wife are on vacation, and he just starts consuming a bunch of Chuck Tingle books. So it's sort of like, it's there's like layers to it where Tinglers exist even when you're in a Tingler. So the entity in a Tingler will either be a creation of myth, an animal, an inanimate object, or a sentient being. And what happens is the two or more will form an attraction to each other that ends in a consensual, graphically described, yet joyful, schmexual relationship, and the book ends on like a very positive, upbeat, life-affirming note. And that was definitely the case for Carrot Appendage over here, where the guy kept reading these books and they're like, hey, you're reading them, but you're not really reading them. You're just looking at the words and you're just sort of doing things to do things. Have you ever thought about maybe taking a beat, stepping back, just learning to enjoy? And then he does learn to enjoy, along with his wife and a snowman. Typically, these books fall into the love interest, I don't know if I should call it that, being dinosaur, a Bigfoot, unicorn, and living object is how Chuck Tingle describes the 4 categorizations. I did read the Game of Thrones knockoff one, which maybe that might fall into dinosaur. What was the love interest in that? It was sort of dinosaur-y, but there's titles like My Billionaire Triceratops Craves Gay Ass and Professor T-Rex Teaches Me Gayness. There are Bigfoot titles such as Pounded by President Bigfoot. That sounds great. And then the unicorn ones like Taken by the Gay Unicorn Biker and Yours, the Unicorn Sailor. Beautiful. Then there's the living object category, which the aforementioned snowman one would fall into. There's vehicles such as jet plane that we've talked about. The banana in my butt is a handsome lifeguard, which... And then there are abstract concepts. Pounded in the butt by the sentient physical manifestation of Valentine's Day is one, or Saturday pounds me in the butt. Personally, I'm more of a Friday gal, but you do you, or you do Saturday. So those are the type of books, and obviously the covers are created by Chuck Tingle in Photoshop, which I don't think there was any question about that. It's a very distinct style where there's a lot of bare-chested men with abs, and then a face on top of a banana, or a pound, like a British pound. Now, the snowman was just a snowman. He didn't have a nice looking man as a face. He was a snowman. Could Chuck Tingle stop doing this and start making covers that were a little more what a typical book audience prefers to pick up at the bookstore? Certainly, but then they would not be quintessential Chuck Tingle. It's just not the same unless you're photoshopping a man onto a banana. Again, the premises are absurd, the covers are absurd, but the books itself are never meaningless. At least in my experience with reading Chuck Tingle books, they always have a point, and you're always sort of surprised by this every time because, again, it's so absurd to open this and have it actually be well written and have a comment that it's trying to make on something. One thing that Chuck Tingle will do is sort of do like a Law and Order type thing where it's like ripped from the headlines, except obviously he can get out these Tinglers much faster than an episode of Law and Order. So he can see a cultural moment and then produce an entire book based on it. So this ends up transforming Chuck Tingle books from, oh, this is just an erotica, into this is an erotica sometimes, but it also is like a incredible tool for social or political commentary. Now, one of his full-length books is commentary and also making fun of a particular transphobic author, and that is Harriet Porber, which I plan to read around Christmas. This is a book with a trans girl wizard. I think it's going to be fun. That's a full-length book. He has some of his short tinglers, such as Slammed in the Butt by Donald Trump's attempt to avoid accusations of plagiarism by removing all facts or concrete plans from his Republican National Convention speech. Whew, wow. And Donald Trump's ass is haunted by the handsome ghost of his incriminating tax returns. Lou and I were laughing about Pounded by the Pound, Turned Gay by by the socioeconomic implications of Britain leaving the European Union, talking about a pretty complex geopolitical event that I myself don't even understand, in which the narrative ends up like mocking nationalism. He's also mocked the panic over teenagers eating laundry detergent pods, taken on the vapid nature of online discourse, so taking on viral media and consumer culture and satirizing that as well. I really enjoy, though, when he does use Tinglers for meta commentary on his own work. So for instance, in, a aforementioned Snowman book, again, the guy was reading but not really intaking anything he was reading. He was just reading it to get done. He was sort of a workaholic, and the books that he was reading were Chuck Tingle books. In fact, they were like very specific Chuck Tingle books that were referenced. But he also has made commentary using his Tinglers on things that have happened to him that are pretty funny. So for instance, in Slammed in the Butt by my Hugo Award nomination, and then when he did not win his Hugo Award nomination, this was followed up with Pounded in the Butt by my Hugo Award loss, he's talking about an event that is actually quite funny if you haven't heard about this. So right-wing sci-fi writers tried to delegitimize the Hugo Awards by nominating Chuck Tingle. So this group of right-wing sci-fi fantasy authors called the Puppies, a group of people who are upset about the idea of diversity in science fiction and fantasy, which I could do like a whole video on what happened with this, because this has been going on for decades. Like the term that's now thrown around by these same people is everything's woke now. So these people feel like identity politics is being shoved into their genre. So a couple of conservative men writers claimed that the Hugo Awards had become too politicized because they were too much about promoting diversity. So there was a group of science fiction fantasy writers called Sad Puppies, and there was another one called Rabid Puppies. Rabid Puppies led by an extremist who made shitty comments about N.K. Jemisin, shitty racist comments, I should say. And so Rabid Puppies ends up nominating, sort of as like a joke, not really a joke, nominating Chuck Tingle's work in order to delegitimize all of the Hugo Awards. So Chuck Tingle writes a story about this where he shits on the puppies within the story itself. He taunted the puppies. He made an entire website called The Rabid Puppies. And honestly, as a person who just thinks everything that the puppies did in this situation, and these typically white men authors who are upset at the idea of diversity becoming more and more prominent in publishing. To me, this is just fucking hilarious and also wholesome. Like, sure, it probably stung to them, but I mean, he was honestly so nice about it. Like I'm a dick to right-wing people on the internet. I have like an ongoing thing where I bully book banners, specifically one in my county, and I'm such a dick about it. And yet Chuck Tingle's out here like nicely bullying people, and they picked the wrong person to nominate, or exactly the right person, I guess, if you asked me, because they put themselves in a position where they ended up getting laughed at. And Chuck Tingle is, again, so wholesome about it. Like, he's so sweet and funny about it. Like, some people call him like punk rock, but he's like very hope punk. All of his books end so positively, even though he's making political commentary. Every time I end a book banning book, I'm usually crying. Chuck Tingle could talk about book banners and you would end up feeling so hopeful about it in the end. That's really his core philosophy. Love is real. And you end up leaving Chuck Tingle books like, sure, you're laughing a little bit, sometimes at the expense of people like Donald Trump or the Puppies, but you're also feeling kind of hopeful. His persona and his work, it's all this act of this unifying message that love is real. His fictional backstory is fun performance art for those of us. I'm sure the people from Rabid Puppies were like, who is this guy? I must know so I can dox him. His anonymity is fiercely protected, though it is discussed on the internet. He does do events, so there's like an entire video you can watch of him on a panel with like Aaron A. Craig and Catriona Ward and a couple of other authors. Oh, Sylvia Moreno Garcia was on this panel. Love her. And it was at the horror panel at Comic-Con, and he's doing like a whole thing, a whole interview with the bag on and the glasses.
The most effective art for me and what I want to create is something that combines the two, that doesn't divide by highbrow or lowbrow, but that respects it all and understands that art of the body is just as important as art of the mind.
There's speculation of, is that his real voice or is he using a voice? Is that a bit? He has discussed that he is autistic, that he is bisexual, possibly genderqueer. There was a case where someone named John showed up on a Reddit post in 2016 claiming to be both the editor of Chuck Tingle's books and also his son. He made a lot of claims, including that his father, Chuck, was a savant and schizophrenic. Chuck Tingle has said multiple times, I do not have schizophrenia. I guess this was on his Wikipedia page at one point, and he asked that it be removed. Some people were like, is John real? Is this a troll? Or is this part of the performance? I don't think it's part of the performance because I don't think that Chuck Tingle would, want somebody to say that Chuck Tingle is schizophrenic, only for Chuck Tingle to have to repeat himself over and over and say, I never said that and I am not. I wish that we would not throw around schizophrenia like that, whoever John is. Now, there is a really interesting theory that Chuck Tingle is none other than actor Chris Pine. Chuck Tingle has dabbled in talking about this. This comes from someone on the internet saying that Chris Pine took an erotica writing class from her and his writing was quite good. Chuck Tingle's writing is quite good. I love that people theorize this. Like, what a fun, celebrity conspiracy. Chuck Tingle has talked about this and he said, I do not fully endorse buds, another word he also uses often along with buckaroos, trying to figure out identity of Chuck because in many ways this would be outing someone's sexuality and neurodivergence. When this pink bag over my dang head is off, my bi way and autistic way are not outwardly visible, and while I would certainly say with pride, yes, this is my way, to a close bud who asked, it is a very different journey in public. He does talk about the Chris Pine thing on Twitter sometimes. One thing Chuck loves about handsome Chris discourse is that my way as autistic bud and bi bud is not visible, so it warms my heart to see Bud say, it is not my place to assume Chris Pine is straight and neurotypical. He could be Chuck, who knows? Honestly, so moving and important. I do not usually like to talk or encourage guesses of Chuck's way, but in this case, I do not know. It is just very moving to me. Honestly, brings tears to my eyes to see such openness and lack of gatekeeping. So powerful. Thank you, buds. I think it proves love more than you know. In this, he says deep dives should probably not happen, but maybe a surface skim for a little bit of fun is okay. And that's what we're doing here. Even if I had information on who Chuck Tingle really is, I would not present it to you similarly to Sleep Token. Not my place. I do think that it's really funny to deep dive into, is Chris Pine Chuck Tingle? Chuck Tingle also makes fun of this on his Instagram account where he posts this and says, you guys are looking at Chris Pine, but you're ignoring the obvious. Chuck Tingle continues to be the most wholesome anonymous person on the internet. So the art is a tool for introspection, but he has been slowly peeling back the layers and revealing different pieces of himself, such as his sexuality and more pieces of his identity. In 2019, Chuck Tingle released the Tingleverse, the official Tingle role-playing game, which served to canonize and systemize the concepts, creatures, and cosmic rules that had been emerging across all of his Tinglers. So it provides fans with a concrete framework for understanding and participating in his world. The RPG establishes elements of the Tingleverse lore, like the primary setting is Billings, Montana, that like Sunnydale is like a nexus for the supernatural. So players can choose from 5 character classes: Bad Boy, the Charmer, the Sneak, the Wizard, and the True Buckaroo. And the ultimate antagonist is not a person, it is the void. It is a concept, an all-consuming nothingness that represents hate and nihilism. And the void has various minions like void crabs. And the heroes of this world are the true buckaroos who fight against the encroaching darkness that is the void. And this has entire Dungeons and Dragons style rules for combat, hit moves, cool moves for fighting monsters, but there's no, which is sort of the defining trait of a lot of the Tinglers. But this only furthers the core philosophy of the Tingleverse, which is that love is real. And the goal of the true buckaroo is to fight against nihilism and hate with love, and not just love. Love is an authentic, unquantifiable force that cannot be won with a successful skill check. Chuck Tingle successfully leveraged his cult following into a 4-book deal with Tor Nightfire, which Hey Tor, love you. You're the best. Can I have an Ark of the Everlasting? I'm begging on my knees. Please. Tor Nightfire is the horror imprint with Macmillan. This is a big leap from self-published erotica with, banana covers to mainstream traditional publishing. But I think it's deserved because, again, his books are actually good. Sure, we're laughing at the banana, but the books are actually good. Are they funny? Are they satire? Sure, but they're actually good. Trust me, I'm reading a really bad book right now. You never know what Chuck Tingle is going to do next. That feels like a threat. But the move from self-published satirical erotica to horror has been a success. He's been given nominations for the Bram Stoker Award. He ended up on the USA Today bestseller list. I'm told that those are really important things. I don't know anything about them, but I'm told that they're important. And he is on panels and doing author events. He is an author who's sitting on a panel with one of my favorite authors, Sylvia Moreno Garcia. Camp Damascus, which is still not in the same room as me, is the book that I think out of all of his books appeals the most to me because it's an exploration of religious trauma and queer identity, similar to Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White, which is so good. The story is set in Montana, and it's a town dominated by a Christian cult called the Kingdom of the Pine, and they run Camp Damascus, which is a gay conversion therapy camp. It's a conversion camp. And they're like, we have a 100% success rate, which I 100% doubt. And our protagonist is a young autistic woman raised within the religion who begins to see a horrifying demon whenever she experiences queer attraction. She discovers that the camp's cure is not psychological, it's actually supernatural. They are binding demons to queer youth to suppress their identities in a very violent way. So this is a critique of the real-world horror of conversion therapy, where Chuck Tingle is talking about how hate and fear are disguised by the church as concern and charity and love and kindness. A book where the unsettling calm, the chillingly calm bureaucratic bullshit of these humans, how they can even remain so calm when they're being so disgustingly evil and doing this to queer kids. Okay, my house is under construction, so I have to finish this here. The reason why I don't really care to find out who Chuck Tingle is first of all, I value his privacy, but also I love this. I love his journey from niche author of bizarre erotica to a celebrated figure in queer horror. This is an unlikely success story. It's a case study in how an artist can cultivate an online following from just being a cool bud, just being a nice old buckaroo, and also how to deal with right-wing weirdos on the internet and come out on top while also making them look very stupid and having them be the ones with egg on their face, and the ability to build a powerful and positive community who all flood your comments with the phrase love is real, especially around again, bizarre erotica. Building a following is so fucking cool. Yeah, did I read a book written by him where a snowman had a carrot for a wiener and had a menage a trois with a couple who also the guy needed to learn a little bit about taking a step back and taking time for himself? I did do that. And you know what? It was really well written. I'm as surprised as you are. I love that he's built a legacy defined not by only his books, but by the way that he has cultivated his community, the way that he has cultivated this persona that is, yeah, it's weird and bizarre, but it's also strangely upbeat. Chuck Tingle is everything that I want out of the author community and the reader community, and building. There's a lot of blurring the lines between authors and readers, but this kind of community being built online is exactly what I want out of the blurring of those lines. This is best case scenario. I also think that I think that this is one of the smartest people writing today, because the ability to take real world things that either happen to him or are happening and satirize them is art, and it's smart and it's witty and it's funny. And if you listen to interviews with Chuck, he's actually quite brilliant. So while it can look like ridiculous premises because of the covers, this is actual art. There's comments, a lot of comments in his Instagram is, yeah, I read the classics, and the classics is this weird, bizarre Chuck Tingle erotica. But honestly, you can get a lot out of reading those weird, bizarre Chuck Tinglers, the erotica. Another example of this is Vera Valentine. Vera Valentine wrote the Door book and then the Couch book. And actually, those are much more than they seem on the outside. Sure, it's funny and, we're laughing at people sometimes. But also, they know how to write a sentence, and knowing how to string a sentence together feels like a lost art at this point. I appreciate that Chuck Tingle talks about rejecting the traditional hierarchy of books, because he talks about how romance and horror are seen as like less than genres. So is his erotica, but there's a lot of power and sincerity in evoking these like visceral reactions from readers that horror can do, but also the ability to make the reader think is something that Tinglers do. And again, this is a lost art. A lot of the conversation we're having about books lately is, well, I just turned my brain off. And surprisingly, Chuck Tingle's Tinglers are brain-on books. You wouldn't think it from, the face being photoshopped onto a banana or on a hot dog, but in fact, they are. Tinglers are used as tools for humor and satire and absurdity, and to disarm bigotry, and introduce like radical ideas of consent and acceptance, and most of all, love. Yes, you can find love with a billionaire jet plane, or a T-Rex, or a unicorn, or Bigfoot. The sentence that I am currently saying sounds so ridiculous, but it's true, and Chuck Tingle did that. Ultimately, the entire Chuck Tingle project, this entire art piece, from the anonymous mass persona to the lore of the Tingleverse, which is so expansive, is brilliant to me. It's a universe where the central conflict is not always like good versus evil, but it's exactly what the RPG game is, which is love versus the void, connection versus nihilism and being alone and apathy and hate. In a world where there is so much cynicism, Chuck Tingle chooses an alternative and chooses to make art showcasing the alternative and proving that love is real. And also, you're gonna get pounded in the butt by it. How else did you want me to end this? Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, leave a peach or a unicorn or a dinosaur, depending on which kind of Tingler is your favorite. Let me know if you've read Camp Damascus. I'm finally in the room as Camp Damascus, and I can't reach it because there's a table right next to me. My house is under construction, so I can't move around in here like I do. But I'm very excited to read Camp Damascus. I know Natalie liked it. If you liked Camp Damascus, please let me know. I'm very excited to read it and hopefully do another deep dive on it. Similarly, we talked about Hell Followed With Us on this channel, which is kind of in the same vein, and I'm maybe I can do like a comparison video. To conclude this again, I think Chuck Tingle is brilliant, and I want more Chuck Tingles out of this community, although he's like a very specific character and art piece in this community. I would love more, and I don't mean whatever is going on with Danny Francis. I'm not asking to unmask these people, and that's not the more that I want. I want more artistic, anonymous, entire like lore within lore type people. I love this. So don't try to find out who he is. Who cares who he is? Just enjoy all of the layers that is Chuck Tingle. Love is real. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye. Hi, before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jade, Jill, John E, Jory, Julie, Kai Brecker has not read Six of Crows, Kalane OK, Katya, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lex, Lily, Maddie Miss, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Lou Who, Piloting SRN, Rain, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Steph B, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Urchin Audrey, and White Raven 13. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. Huge thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, Aaron, Alejandra, Alicia, Bobisha, Banana, Fofana, Fofisha. What are we doing? Alicia, Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry, Baywing, Beck, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bridget 108, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Kathy, Celeste, Che, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Fox Waifu, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Hrising, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jesse Ives, Jessa Sue, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Caitlin M, Katie L, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, KMTB, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Mataraptor, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mima Who, Morgan the Friendly Ghost, Myth Lesbian, NM Rap, Natural Blues, Nicole G, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ren Flynn, Rhea, Reese, Ronnie, Rosie, Secoria, Saintbringer, Sakya Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Too Thick to Work Tomorrow, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being a friend.